And here we are, he's gone himself. This could win him the Tour of Britain. Oh my goodness me, look at that ball. He's left the rest for dead. Here they come into the closing stages. Those weary legs, he asks for a little more power. Oh, it was so close.
Hello and welcome to a properly filthy day here in Chard in Somerset, where the remains of a transatlantic hurricane, probably Hurricane Federer, continues to batter Britain and threatens to turn this race inside out. Not much changed yesterday as the main men with an eye on GC continued to check each other out, watching and waiting for the moves to come. Then it was GB's Ian Stannard who went off the front and stayed off the front. For 45 miles he ploughed a lone furrow, but the big boys caught him and the race came together before Newbury's tight turns took their toll on the running.
Goss takes it, timed it to absolute perfection.
Matt Goss then, who was forced to abandon the Tour 2 years ago when leading the race, back at the top of GC, almost. Pataki's 6th place on the stage keeps him in yellow, and Danilo De Luca continues to sweep up the bonuses en route and move up the table. Bradley Wiggins, though, lost touch and time, back at 56 seconds. Well, yesterday Goss and Pataki were the winners, but Paul Manning, what about your mate Bradley Wiggins? He's already nearly a minute down in GC and he's been invisible. What's going on?
Yeah, I'd really feel for him on days like this. You know,
No, you don't.
I know what it was like for me in 2004. We did the Olympics, came and did the first Tour of Britain, and that was a struggle for me to get through the race. You want to do well on your home roads and your home crowd, but I guess your heart and your head is still back in Beijing and enjoying the success we had out there.
Yeah, well, I made sure that you earned your money a bit earlier and I sent you out to have a word with him.
Yeah. So Bradley, the Great British public wondering why you aren't in the yellow jersey.
Yeah, I just I haven't been out the pub since I've gone back. So.
And you're going to plan on making your race-winning move today?
No, we got Roger who's up there, Hammond, and we're just going to try and see what we can do with him. There's obviously a lot of bonuses on the route, and we'll. He's pretty up for this home race in the green jersey now. So.
That's good, so you're going to play a supporting role throughout the week?
Well, yeah, that's kind of the plan at the moment. If there's an opportunity late in the week to get in a break, maybe once we ride in a bit more into the race, see what I can do, yeah.
Good luck out there.
Cheers, thank you.
All right.
Bradley Wiggins there, talking to that debutant reporter, Paul Manning. He's not bad at his job, is he? Now, the Brits have been figuring really high up, Paul, so far, in almost every move on this year's tour. We've had Ian Stannard's solo effort yesterday, we've had Brits, we've had Rob Hale second in London, we've had Brits involved in almost every step of the way. It could be a day for young Ben Swift today, last year's King of the Mountain, part of the Great Britain team. What do you make of him as a talent?
Yeah, I mean, he's phenomenal talent. We saw his hit the headlines last year in the Tour of Britain with the King of the Mountains jersey, and I was sort of battling with him on a few stages for those preems. A phenomenal talent. We've seen him pushing top 10 every day in the bunch sprints as well. So he's clearly wants to remain vigilant, keep himself at the head of the action. And I think today he's going to want to keep himself in contention for the overall. It'll be one of those days where people are going to lose out, but I don't think we're going to find the winner of the Tour of Britain today.
Sure. I mean, what sort of an athlete is he? Is he a pure climber? Is he a bit of everything? A hybrid?
He's a good all-rounder. He's got incredible skills that he learnt on the track with the GB Academy. He keeps himself at the head of the affairs all day long. He can sprint, he can climb. He's got good endurance. He's getting older all the time, and extra strength with it.
Yeah, we're all getting older all the time, and unlike us who have to stand out in the rain, Ben Swift has a truck that he sits in, and I caught up with him earlier. Well, Ben, I noticed you're sheltering away in the minibus. I mean, the conditions today are foul, aren't they? But looking at the profile, it could be a day for you, couldn't it, this?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, coming from Britain, we're quite used to this weather. So, no, definitely the course profile looks quite good. This is the stage where it all split up last year, so it'd be a good day.
What's that Category 1 like? Have you ridden it before?
No, I haven't ridden it before, but judging from the Category 1 last year, I don't think it's too far away, and the roads are pretty heavy, so it's definitely going to be a part to look out for.
If we don't know who's going to win this tour after today, we will probably know who's not going to win it. So there might be a sort of degree of separation in the GC at the end of today, and you're going to have to make sure you're in the top end of it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I think like going off the last year, there was 3 groups all with 10 minutes between them. So definitely try and get in the front group. I think it'll definitely be a group because there's 30k of flat towards the end. So maybe not the overall winner will be decided today, maybe a bit later in the week, but definitely we'll know who's in the mix for it.
King of the Mountains last year, have you got major GC ambitions this time?
Yeah, I've got an eye on GC and I've also got an eye on the King of the Mountains, but if I've got an eye on the King of the Mountains, then I'm going to be there at the major parts for the GC, so just taking the GC day by day really.
Good stuff and good luck today.
Thank you.
And this is what he'll face as the Atlantic Ocean gets dumped on Devon. Exmoor will provide the first really major examination of the tour. The route loops from Chard to Burnham-on-Sea, but for the most part does battle with a terrain where the wind doesn't so much blow as howl. 3 sprint hotspots play second fiddle to the real story of the day, the 3 climbs, the toughest of which, the Category 1 mile hill, comes right in the middle of a sapping stage. The finish, though, is flat and fast. And this is what we're led to believe Somerset looks like on Prozac, or perhaps on a brighter day. Streams, sunshine, and horses jumping out at you without warning. It's where the highlands of the southwest relax a bit and drop down for a dip in the sea. Although today is not a day for messing around with kiteboarding. Well, if you've got any sense at all, the last thing in the world you'd ever want to do is to pull on your cycling kit and ride as hard as you can 105 miles over Exmoor. Far better than that is just a flick on the telly, put your feet up and enjoy the commentary. Here's Hugh Porter and Anthony McCrossan.
Head of the riders today, 115 miles from Chard to Burnham-on-Sea, the longest stage with 3 tough back-breaking climbs to race over. And just to further spice up the testing ingredients, it's raining and there is a strong blustery wind. Alessandro Patacchi, the iconic super sprinter, is in yellow, but today's terrain will not be to his liking. Almost the entire field are in touch to challenge for the overall top spot on this 3rd leg. But by the time the survivors arrive at the seaside resort of Burnham-on-Sea, the pattern of the race could look a lot different.
Well, the riders wrapped up against the rain at the moment, although the spirit in the peloton looks quite jovial this morning. Roger Hammond smiling away. He's got the green jersey underneath that gilet top.
He's got some good form as well as Roger Hammond. He's already had 2 stage victories to his credit in the previous Tour of Britons. There is Tyler Hamilton. First time we've seen Tyler Hamilton racing over here. He's been quiet so far, but maybe today could suit him. Now then, what about the team of Agritubel?
Agritubel are keen this morning. They were saying that they wanted to try and position themselves to win this race. As we look in the peloton, there's the Ploughman Craven team. Simon Richardson.
This is the first climb of the day. This is Staple Hill, and the summit of the climb comes after 7.8 miles. So the riders haven't had very much time to get the legs warmed up.
Well, we know that at the top of this climb that we've got very low cloud, and the riders are going to ride into some very low visibility when they go over the crest of this. At the back here, we're in the green from the Anpos team, a problem for Paddy O'Brien. But Tom Southam with the Great Britain team has got his race face on today.
And you can see what Tom Southam is doing here. He's trying to lead out Ben Swift to help Ben Swift get more points to try and narrow the gap between him and the leader in the Eon King of the Mountains contest, Christian House. And you can see House is in the wheel of Ben Swift. So these 2 protagonists are already beginning to fight it out.
Well, the pace is pretty high here already on the first climb of the day, but now Southam starts to increase the pressure, and House is going to have to be pretty vigilant as young Ben Swift takes a great ride to the top of the climb on the wheel of Tom Southam.
Swift, what a talent he is. He's based in Italy. He rode in the Olympic Games in Beijing, and he's going to be one of the big hopes for a medal when they get to the 2012 London Olympics. Swift was the winner of the King of the Mountains last year, this 20-year-old who comes from Rotherham. Now then, he's trying very hard at the head of the long peloton to give Christian House, who's now taken over the pace, setting the slip. And now let's see whether Swift on the right can react. House it is at the moment leading, and also coming through on the left is another rider that could spoil the party for both of them.
Looks to me like Christian House may have not realised quite how long the climb is as they head towards the top of the first Eon King of the Mountains of the day, and the contrast from front to back of this race is pretty different to see. You can see already riders are starting to suffer at the back. The pressure has now relented at the front.
It's a second category affair here, so the first rider over the top gets 6, 5, 4, all the way down to 1. House once again doing a good job here. He will have received his instructions from his team manager to watch out for the attack for the nearest challengers. House's manager is John Herity, former British champion. Here they are then, slugging it out, these two on the extreme left of the screen. Swift in the national colours of the Great Britain team, and then House in the Eon King of the Mountains jersey right alongside him. The ever-presence of one of the riders from Agritubel, who really are out to try and impress today. But look at young Swift.
Swift looking on good form. Sabido to the right hand side of him for the Team Barlow World. This first climb of the day coming so soon into the stage, 1.9 miles in total, and it's a little bit of a shock for these riders. Just 7.8 miles into the race. Now we're starting to see some gaps in the peloton already. House doesn't look as good as he did yesterday. He's suffering a little bit, Christian House.
Slipping back, isn't he? That's noticeable, and look at the conditions here. This underlines just how hard bike racing is. There's no rain stop play in this sport, and you can hardly see. I bet the front riders actually cannot be seen from the back as it stretches out. Now the lead out here is being given by Hugo Sabido of the Barlow World team, but look at the attack on the left by Ben Swift. Young Ben Swift takes over the Paysetti and comes over the top of the climb there to pick up 6 very, very valuable points, and that will narrow the gap significantly. It means now that young Swift only trails Christian House, the Eon King of the Mountains leader, by 4 points, and there is confirmation of the result at the top of Staple Hill.
Swift wins that climb ahead of Sabido with Dan Lloyd in third, and now they set themselves up for a very technical descent.
Well, just a mile from today's starting point is the beautiful Chard Reservoir. Obviously plenty of water here today, and I don't think anybody in Britain could have escaped the recent downpours. But how do the riders cope in such wet conditions? Well, the man to ask is Paul. And Paul, today already has been pretty grim. How do you prepare for weather like this?
Yeah, well, anyone who's down the start today will have seen riders, deciding how much clothing to wear. When they're out on the route, the weather can come and go, the rain will stop, the rain will start. So they need to know that they can get warm clothes while they're out in the race, and to do that they'll go back to the team car, and in the team car they'll have a little bag of kit like this.
Lots of provisions in here. What kind of stuff do cyclists carry?
Well, if the weather gets bad up on the moors, they'll have maybe a bigger pair of gloves that they'll just slide on over their track mitts. If there's a lot of spray, they'll have something to protect their feet. The Rafa Condor boys will be keeping their feet warm, some waterproof material over their shoes, and to protect their body they will have a choice of tops, probably something like this when the rain's particularly fierce.
Yeah.
Just a thin,
and a bit of a wind
top.
sheet as well.
More of a wind sheet, just quickly zips or velcros up the front there. Yeah. And again, arm warmers. You see the guys will all probably started with a pair of these on today. You can just roll those down so the heat can escape. Okay. Roll it back up again when the weather turns a bit more nasty. And I had some good results in the rain, but I never enjoyed it.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Paul. Hopefully this week you'll have the luxury of an umbrella if Ned provides you with one. But for now, let's return to the action.
The pattern of the race continues to change, and 12 more riders are now trying to go clear, and there's a rich mix of teams in this one.
This group forming at about the 18-mile mark, but they're heading towards Tiverton. A strong chase from the Top Sport Vlaanderen team, who have completely missed out on this breakaway. There's Andy Tennant riding for Great Britain on the left-hand side of the screen in the blue and yellow. From the Team Columbia, Greg Henderson, the New Zealand rider. Also represented in here, the MTN Energade team there in yellow. Kevin Evans, the mountain biker. Maybe this terrain today is going to suit him. We're not far from the 1 kilometre to go board for the sprint in Tiverton, coming up at 28.6 miles.
Well, they've actually swept past that 1 kilometre to go, and the first sprint of the day at Tiverton waits for them. This is a big attack here then by Freddie Bichot of the Agritubal team. On the line, there's 3 seconds for first, 2 for second and 1 for third. And with the race so tight, these valuable seconds are going to be very, very, very important by the end of the race. Look at this, Bichot just cruises to the line here. He's going to pick up the 3 seconds. It looks so easy. Evans in the yellow will get the 2. Now then, who's going to get the 1? Ben Swift is also in this little group from Great Britain.
I just noticed at the back of that picture there, the peloton are almost catching this group of 12 riders as Bichot cruises up to the sprint line, slightly uphill to the sprint in Tiverton. He looks around and Kevin Evans is just behind him, the mountain biker from MTN, an enthusiastic crowd welcoming him across the line.
So Bichot takes the 3 seconds. What about third? It looked like a Great Britain jersey to me. I reckon that was actually Ben Swift that got third. It is confirmed. So Swift is riding well today. Bichot the winner, Evans second and Swift third for 2 points and 1 valuable second. And Fayou, last year's winner of the Tour, coming over fourth.
Well, these two riders having a glance around and having a chat amongst themselves just as the junction is made from the peloton to the leading group of 12 riders. We have now got an attack again from the Agritubal team.
But that's been wiped away and the attacks here are coming thick and fast. It's chess on wheels here. Somebody makes a move and then it changes. Now then, this is Simon Clark, the young rider on the AIS team at the front, and he's got with him the Italian who's looking pretty powerful as well. And that rider is Gierio Emetti.
One rider we haven't seen at all in this race yet is just on the attack now. Kim Kirchen, the yellow jersey of the Tour de France this year, glancing across. He's wearing his dark shades today. I don't know if he's going to need those later. And Oscar Sevilla of Rock Racing on his wheel as well as the riders go up yet another climb. There's no flat roads in this stage today, Hugh.
No, it's very, very tough countryside here, and this could well be, as they say in cycling parlance, the day of selection, where all the riders will battle it out, and then the positions that they end up in, they will defend until the end. Here's another attack coming yet again from the Agritubal team, and this is Geoffrey Lecat, the 27-year-old Frenchman who's ridden in the Tour of Spain and the Tour de France. He looks strong.
34 miles covered of this extremely tough stage. Here goes Lecat.
And now I think we can join Rachel Phillips, who's taking a look at what awaits the riders.
Well, the clouds are getting thicker and the hills are getting steeper. This is the first Category 1 climb of the race so far. It's 5 kilometres long, and while the finish here may be reasonably flat, believe you me, there is some awfully steep hills along the way. So, of course, it could prove decisive in today's stage. As ever, some hardy souls have braved the elements to come to the finish line. Do you like watching people suffer? Is that why you're at this point?
That's what I'm here. Yes, lovely. I mean, I can't wait to see them be sick over the line there.
Yeah. That's lovely. I mean, what are you looking forward to see?
The time they can come up over, because it takes me about 20 minutes, half hour to cycle up here. No, I think you'll be doing it a lot quicker than that.
It's an incredibly steep hill, isn't it?
It is. They call it Mile Hill, but it's a lot longer than Mile Hill. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much. This is what the riders have to look forward to. But for now, let's go back to the race itself.
And the first man that's going to get to that climb is Geoffrey Lecat. He really is motoring along here, and he's built up quite a useful lead.
Well, his advantage is growing towards the 5-minute mark now, about 4 minutes and 50 seconds. A sizable advantage for the man from Agritubal, and the team of LPR are starting to get concerned.
LPR in the grey, although a lot of them have got race max on today, or race capes as they call them. There's a presence of the red jerseys as well near the front of the Barlow World. But Lecat, he's taken the race by the scruff of the neck. He's heading on towards the second sprint of the day at South Moulton, and that will be 51 miles covered.
Well, this man was third in the under-23 Paris Tour a few years ago, and he's also got his own clothing line. He's wrapped up against the cold. He's fully clothed with arm warmers and leg warmers. He's got to keep that body as warm as possible in a lone escapade like this. But the peloton are looking quite relaxed at this moment in time.
I think they're quite happy because they know one man out in the lead with a long, long way to go. It's a big ask, and when the speed picks up, they'll probably sweep him up. But he's making a name for himself here, and of course he's picking up valuable points in the sprints competition. And every time he gets across that line first, he also collects 3 seconds.
Well, the road rising up to the sprint in South Moulton yet again, as we've mentioned already. There are no flat roads hardly on this stage at all, and the peloton are what we call piano right now. They're taking things nice and easy.
The Barlow World team have obviously got some sort of a game plan. Their manager Alberto Volpi will have talked it over with the team. They've got Geraint Thomas in that squad, who won a gold medal for the team pursuit in Beijing, and he's a very good stage race rider. And Steve Cummings, who rode a brilliant time trial in Beijing, and Cummings is in very good form. So those two could be in with a chance of trying to get clear later when the breaks develop to chase down Lecat.
Well, about 17 miles in the lead so far for Lecat. Rob Hales in the centre of the picture, and there's the Barlow World team again. And Lecat, well, the pattern of this race similar to yesterday. We saw Ian Stannard on the attack for 46 miles. Lecat's been in the lead for 17. You wonder, with a lead like this, how long he's going to be out there. Maybe the longest breakaway of this year's race.
Well, South Moulton, he's not too far from the first category climb of Mile Hill, which is in Exmoor, and that will certainly sort the field out.
Well, South Moulton is the most westerly area of this course. We then start to turn back over Exmoor and through towards Bridgewater, and of course the finish in Burnham-on-Sea. But an enthusiastic crowd in South Moulton as he approaches now the sprint point.
Testimony to the popularity of the Tour of Britain. And of course this year so many towns applied to be considered as stage finishes and starts, and that's why it's been increased to 8 days. There's the long straight through South Moulton, slightly uphill. In fact, there's no respite here on this stage. You cannot get a rest. You're either descending or climbing, and even when it looks flat, you're working hard. They're heavy roads.
Well, we've been switching in and out of Somerset and Devon today, but what a great show they have put on their local area. Lecat now again out of the saddle up this little climb.
Well, this is Lecat still ploughing along at the front, but I can tell you that the field has disintegrated behind into several different groups, and the next two riders immediately behind him trying to get on terms are Cummings and Fleeman.
The gap is now 3:18 to the two chasers and 4:20 back to a further group. But here are the two chasers, Cummings in red for Barlow World and Dan Fleeman in green. Now Fleeman is a class act, he's 25 years of age and he loves this terrain, recently winning the Tour of the Pyrenees.
So the two knitting together nicely here, working evenly to try and bridge the gap up to the Frenchman Lecat, and if they can link up, that would give a very strong formation at the head of the race. A race that's been fascinating ever since the flag dropped in Chard this morning.
Dan Fleeman said that in Ireland last week, where he rode very well, the terrain wasn't hard enough. Well, today is proving extremely difficult. There is Lecat, he takes a drink and throws it away. He's just trying to get as much energy into that tired body as possible before these two chasers catch him. But Fleeman is the man setting the pace. Interestingly, Hugh, this man's got one kneecap.
It is interesting, but Steve Cummings, just sitting second position behind there, is a rider with immense talent, and he will excel today. The Cat continues here on this first category climb, getting some generous support from the side. The advance announcer will have gone through about 5 minutes ahead to have advised them exactly what the situation is in the race.
Well, the crowd cheering on this rider. The picture's not really showing how windy it is at the top of this climb. It's extremely tough. A very strong side wind blowing on these riders, which is making the effort even more difficult. Fleeman with his tongue out, just trying to get to the top of the climb and bring this man back.
Well, they're in Exmoor now, and over the summit of the climb to the left on the coast is Porlock, and here is the group that those two have left. Ian Stannard still going well despite his big efforts the day before. He's a real powerhouse, Stannard, on the extreme right in the Great Britain colours.
This group was originally 24 strong, but it's starting to whittle down a little bit. I noticed Roger Hammond is still in there, riding strongly in the green jersey. Be interesting to see whether this group can catch all the riders in front. Now the Cat heading towards the top of the climb. The Eon King of the Mountains, the flag of Flanders flying there, and you can see the coast in the distance.
Well, the Cat is over the summit first, so he collects the points. There's 10 here available for the first rider to the top, and there's a face of suffering. Look at that.
Dan Fleeman pulling faces. Now, there is a little bit of interest there. Some of the French riders think if you stick your tongue out, it enables you to pull in some more oxygen, but I'm not so sure myself. Onto the descent, 3:45 is the gap.
Maybe the size of the tongue actually could have something to do with that, but it's Le Cat now heading on towards the feeding station, but he doesn't seem to be bothered. He's riding right down the middle of the road here. He will be aware that the brace of riders chasing him are getting ever nearer, because they are wired, of course, and the manager will have told him that there are two coming up, and it probably would be wise for him just to ease back slightly, because these two can then help to share the workload.
Well, if they thought that was the toughest climb of the day, don't forget they've got Cothelstone Hill in the advance in the distance. They're now over the top, these two riders, and the next climb's 2.2 miles long.
So here he is, Le Cat, continuing, but you can see the two behind now, and it's not going to be long before they make the junction as we confirm the result of Mile Hill, Le Cat taking maximum points. So we will have a leading group of 3 now, but the lead is tenuous because the group that they have left are still motoring along behind, and they could all come back together.
We're approaching the 81 mile mark here, and Geoffrey Le Cat on the right hand side of the screen for the first time in many hours is about to have some company. And look at the pace of Steve Cummings. This man does not want to hang around. He's going to take everyone with him, and if Le Cat hasn't got the legs, they may well leave him behind.
Well, Fleeman's got good form as well. He just rode very well in the closing stage in the Tour of Ireland, but Cummings now with a bit between his teeth. He's a rider of immense talent. Now behind, that's Downing there on the Candy TV Pinarello squad. He's trying to bring the other two up to this group of 3.
Also there was Kevin Evans, the mountain biker from MTN Energade, but Le Cat tucked into the wheel of Steve Cummings, and these 3 riders are cruising. Here comes the team car. They're going to give Le Cat a bottle and make sure he stays in there.
So they're settling down to the job now in hand, and how good it is to see that the roads have dried out for the closing stages. But under the trees a little bit further back, you can see that there is still a lot of wet lying on the road.
Well, these riders now have been joined by 2 chasers. Ian Stannard, the man of yesterday, and Bosisio have raced out of nowhere and got themselves across to the 3 leaders. Bosisio is a class act, the Maglia Rosa of the Giro d'Italia this year.
And there he is right on the front. So the fact that the yellow jersey, Pataki's not here, and neither is Danilo De Luca, they can still play another strong card with Bosisio. But Cummings looks very powerful to me as well. Stannard has recovered from his efforts the day before.
46 miles he attacked on his own yesterday. Ian Stannard, he has obviously got incredible form. Look how comfortable Bosisio looks. Cummings concentrating hard, and he will be looking to try and capitalise on the great form he has had this season.
27 years of age, Cummings. We well remember him in one of the closing stages in the Tour of Italy, the longest of the stages. He was away in a break all day, finally finishing 4th. You got a glimpse there of the King of the Mountains, Christian House, in the other group that this forward advanced group have left.
Cummings grits his teeth there. Another big effort onto this climb, and we will be approaching the final climb of the day, Cothelstone Hill, and we'll see whether these riders stay together. Then they will plunge down the descent into Bridgewater for the final sprint.
Just over 8 miles to go once they've hit the summit of Cothelstone Hill, which is a second cat, and there's one more sprint to go after that on the flats at Bridgewater, and that comes at 105 miles, so that's just 10 before the finishing line.
I noticed that Russell Downing was having a conversation with Christian House in the chasing group. Remember, a couple of years ago, those guys were teammates, so they're having a quick word, and Ale Russell written on the road there.
And there he is, you can see Downing, number 41. He's got good form, second in the recent Tour of Ireland, and he's won the Premier Calendar, which finds the most consistent road rider in the country. You can see the green jersey further ahead of Roger Hammond as well.
We're now into Cothelstone with this chasing group, so in front of them at some point very soon they will see the Eon King of the Mountains start, and here is the leading group. Look at Stannard, he's having to grit his teeth and try and stay in there, because these guys are cruising.
Looks a little laboured, doesn't he, Stannard? But he is a big guy and he's young. He's got a tremendous career ahead of him. These hills are very deceptive. They look easy, but believe me, they're not. Remember I mentioned a little earlier the roads were drying? Well, under the trees they're still very wet, as Cummings once again here dances his way towards the summit of this final climb of the day. Cummings is on fire here today and would dearly love to snap up the stage.
We are seeing the largest crowd of any of the climbs so far. Fans lining the road, cheering these riders on, urging them to the top of this 2.2 mile fearsome climb of Cothelstone Hill.
So Cummings was a world champion for the team pursuit back in 2005. He's in the squad for that discipline, so he's one of these riders that has talent to ride on the road, and he also has the silky smooth style to speed round the boards. But it's Cummings at the front, relaxed style with the hands on the top of the bars, and nobody seems to want to help him. And Stannard is beginning to lose contact.
Stannard's legs are beginning to hurt now. 46 miles in the lead yesterday, and he is finding the pace on this climb too hot to handle.
Little contrast in styles here. Cummings can be relaxed on the top of the bars, sitting there, and Bussisio looks good as well. But the Frenchman Lecat looks slightly laboured, and Fleeman, as they are out of the saddle. Now Cummings is forced to take on the same style, getting near to the summit.
Well, just remember this year Stephen Cummings was fourth on the 19th stage of the Giro d'Italia in the mountains to the climb of Montepora, so he is very used to this style of climb.
So Fleeman now comes to the head as the rest settle into the pace that he is tapping out, and Cummings, I must admit, looks very relaxed to me. Lecat still there. Bussisio took a cursory glance back, and Stannard, stubborn resistance by him, claws his way back into the safe haven of the group.
Well, what is fantastic to see here is the depth of talent in British cycling. Dan Fleeman at the front looking relaxed, Steve Cummings in the group, Ian Stannard gritting his teeth and coming back, and he's having a chat here, trying to get a bit of a time gap, and then the rest of the group made up with one Frenchman and one Italian, 3 Brits in the lead.
And of course this group stand to gain an awful lot, because they were all just off the pace of the yellow jersey at the start. So if this group was to remain at the head and sprint it out in Burnham-on-Sea, one of them would take yellow.
The riders can see now the climb kicking up again in front of them, so it is pretty relentless. There's still a long way to go to the top of Cothelstone Hill.
Strong men are beginning to come to the front now here. Here is Cummings beginning to launch himself clear for the top points at the summit. It's going to be Cummings that will go over the crest of the hill first. Looks like Bussisio is reacting behind the Italian in the grey, riding for the LPR. Cummings, I think, has done enough to stay away. Here he comes. Cummings comes over the top first, Bussisio second, and Lecat was third, and I think Stannard actually was fourth there, just in front of Fleeman.
Well, that was an impressive turn of speed, and here is confirmation of the climb of Cothelstone Hill.
And there is just around 18 miles left now to decide who will win this stage in Burnham-on-Sea. The 5 continuing to work steady, and that's the job they have to do to prevent the chasers linking up again. Well, we're into the closing stages of what has been an absolute thrilling, compelling stage here, and it's still far from decided. 9 riders now clear.
9 riders in this group, and it's an intriguing combination. 2 riders from Agritubel, 2 riders from An Post, and you know, Hugh, if you've got the combination of numbers, you can play the old 1-2 and try and go away.
And that's what I'm expecting to happen, but I think possibly the strength will come from the French team, Agritubel, and they will possibly send one rider down the road, and if he gets pulled back, then there will be a reaction from the other. Irish champion on the front here at the moment, and that's young Dan Martin.
But we've also got the strong man from Top Sport Flandern in here, Frederick Voichelen, who we saw on the attack yesterday. Fleeman still looking very focused. He hasn't got his tongue hanging out anymore. He's just concentrating on staying there in the group. Up comes Emilien Burgess.
The climbs are now behind them. We're on the flat running and there's a massive crowd waiting for them to arrive in Burnham-on-Sea. Now looking behind here is Burgess, and it looks like Burgess is beginning to gather himself here for an attack. This could be the first probing move to try and go clear, and he has gone clear. Now then, he'll get assistance from Le Cat, because Le Cat will probably come to the front of the group to try and disrupt the rhythm.
This man has been active in the last 2 days of the Tour of Britain. Of course, he was in the break yesterday after 12 miles. And Burgess hasn't won a race for a couple of years. In fact, his last race win was on the birthday of his daughter. So he's piling the pressure on here. He looks around, and we've only got a few kilometres to go to the finish.
He's a 5-year professional, this fella that's ploughing away at the front now. This is Burgess. And has he gone too early? That's the question we've got to start to ask ourselves. When we look back to the rest of the group he has left, it'll be interesting to see who he's trying to whip the pace up, but he seems to me to be going away.
Well, he's got clear daylight now between himself and the other 8 riders. They're going to have to do something about it, and of course it's going to have to come down to the Anpost team, who've got 2 riders in here to do something about bringing Emilien Burgess back into the fold. He is churning a huge gear.
There's other riders there, of course, that can gain a lot from this. Young Dan Martin on the Garmin Chipotle team, who of course is the son of Neil Martin, who was a fine professional in his day. Here comes the reaction from the group behind. It's beginning to fragment as riders jump clear to try and bridge to the lone man ahead, who really is burying himself. It's Burgess with his sights set now on victory in Burnham-on-Sea.
A true indication of just how hard this man is trying. His head is rocking and rolling all over the place. Behind him, Ian Stannard. There is Stannard on the wheel of Le Cat. Le Cat, how is he finding enough energy to continue with these moves?
Le Cat has been in the thick of the action all day. At one point he had a lead of over 5 minutes, and he's still got the firepower in the legs to try and play a significant part in the closing stages. But Ian Stannard as well, who was struggling on some of the climbs, is in the hunt. Ian Stannard, what a future he's got ahead of him, this youngster from Milton Keynes, but nobody at the moment has got the answer to bridge up to the leader, Burgess, who continues now.
Well, I'm just glancing down from that previous helicopter shot. I think Dan Martin may well be in the gap as well, and he is. Dan Martin of Garmin Chipotle, the Irish road race champion. Great to see he's recovered from Tour of Ireland last week when he had to drop out with food poisoning. And now we have a trio. Stannard at the front, Le Cat in second, who's not going to chase, and Dan Martin, whose head is rocking and rolling as well. But back to Burgess, a valiant effort. This is fantastic.
Courage here written all over the face of the Frenchman, the leader. And remember, last year they provided us with the winner of the Tour of Britain, and it was a sensational ride on that time by Romain Fayou, who at the moment has had quite a quiet tour, but he's brought a powerful squad with him who can take over where he left off. And at the moment I can't see anybody has got an answer to try and bridge to this fella.
Well, here's the shot of Burgess as he tries to just hide himself from the riders who are chasing him. He is going left and right, finding the shortest line through the corners, but a huge crowd awaits him in Burnham-on-Sea.
The road's drying out a little bit on some of these corners. He needs to be vigilant, just be a little careful. There's some of the Dutch couple there, but he had no problem. He's round and still upright, I'm pleased to say. And yes, that's safe as well, the 2 islands, and now he's getting ever nearer to the finish.
Well, the rider now in the lead. We'll just wonder what the time gap is. I think he's got about 4 seconds. 4 seconds Emilien Burgess has. Can he possibly hold on? Dan Martin, Ian Stannard trying to bring him back, but he's now close to the last couple of kilometres.
But the rest of the riders as well are also active. Steve Cummings, Dan Fleeman behind. They've got the rest of that group ahead of them. So at the moment, this is a game of chances. We're into the streets of Burnham-on-Sea, the closing stages. It's still undecided, but I must admit the power of this fella, Burgess, looks very impressive.
Well, he swoops through these left-hand bends. He's got to be very careful. Still slightly wet roads. You don't want to hit too much white paint with your front wheel here, or you could come crashing down. And after a tough stage of 115.5 miles, you don't want to crash in the last few corners.
He looks back again anxiously, but I think he knows he's got this sewn up now. It was the early stages that was the problem. He knew that was the time that he got to really reinforce his stranglehold on the head of the race, and I think he's done that. He has cracked the riders behind. He's got wings on his wheels, this fella. He's being driven on by the thought of standing on the top spot on the podium, and that always finds extra strength, even though your legs are fatigued.
Well, he's just got to concentrate now. If he can just stay away, this will be a sweet victory. He hasn't had a victory for 2 years. He is due one. Is he going to win this stage? You can see ahead the gantry across the road. That is 1 kilometre to the finish.
That's going to be one of the most beautiful signs he's ever seen, because as you said, he hasn't won for a number of years, but I tell you what, that stat is going to be wiped away from his records, because he's going to win today. He could almost ride in now on a flat, because he has distanced himself from the rest of the group by nearly half a minute. So this is the impressive effort here by Burgess.
The gap is growing all the time, and of course, Hugh, 10 seconds on the line. This man could not just be winning the stage, he could be pulling on the cherished yellow jersey at the end of the day.
Yes, that bonus added on to the time that he's gaining over the rest. He's going to give him yellow, definitely. So Burgess about to cover himself in glory here. It won't be too long before he sees the gantry over the road and the sea of faces, the massive crowd that have waited anxiously all day. The showers have been falling, but I'm pleased to say the rain has gone away now, and he's going to take this next little turn, and that will line him up for the run up to the line, the finishing funnel. And you can see the crowd beginning to build now all the time, because they get thicker and thicker as you get nearer to the line. It is Burgess here then from the Agritabel team, the Frenchman, that's got the line in his sights now. The victory salute for Burgess. He wins the stage. It's a sweet victory for him, and it's a massive victory, because not only has he won the stage, that will definitely put him in the yellow jersey. It really is now all about who can finish second, and here they come up to the line now. Lacat, his teammate, despite being in the action all day, he's going to get second. Lacat gets second.
Arms aloft, a run into Burnham-on-Sea, into the yellow jersey, and 30 seconds later into the arms of his teammate. I put it to him that he'd now have to defend that yellow jersey all the way to the end.
Of course, we've got a highly motivated team and we'll be giving it everything. So let's see what happens out on the course. If it isn't me, then we've got Geoffroy Lacat too, so we'll just have to see.
And after him, the deluge. In total, 22 more riders spread out over 3.5 minutes. Then a 10-minute wait before the bunch straggled in and started to swap hard luck stories, most of which centred around Rock Racing's Oscar Sevilla yet again, and Tyler Hamilton, who collided, leaving both needing stitches. Apparently Hamilton got through 3 bikes on the course till they ran out, and he had to borrow one from Team GB. So, a 1-2 then for everyone's favourite French agricultural tubing supplier, Emilien Berge taking advantage of a disorganised chase, and Geoffroy Lecatre, for so long the leader over Exmoor, taking second. Ian Stannard came in 6th, undiminished by yesterday's heroics. Berge then with the stage win, and he sweeps up the 10-second time bonus, which catapults him into pole position. The race lead to him then, and a very handy 29 seconds over his nearest rival, who just happens to be a teammate. Ian Stannard and Steve Cummings are both still in touch, though at 37 seconds, and don't rule out Dan Martin, the Irish champion, in 8th. Big losers today, and there were many, include yesterday's yellow jersey Alessandro Patacchi, as well as Romain Fayou, last year's winner, both over 13 minutes down now and out of contention. So for Fayou 2007, perhaps Reid Berge in 2008. Agritubel have clearly taken this race by the scruff of the jersey. Well, they're packing up behind us here in Burnham-on-Sea and preparing to move on, but the carnage that was going to be done in this race that we all predicted was done. And just to look at that GC omits a few names who are now completely out of it. Danilo De Luca, for example, will play no major part in the GC anymore, nor will David Miller, Kim Kirchen, or of course Bradley Wiggins, and that's your fault.
I haven't been out the pub since I got back, so...
Now, you've had a look at tomorrow's stage, which runs from Worcester to Stoke.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, through the Midlands, an area I know well. I think it'll be a stage where a lot of the guys who've lost out today and their GC ambitions are over, 10, 12 minutes behind, they're going to get up the road and strike fit success on the Stoke-on-Trent finish tomorrow.
Yeah, let's hope the rain stays away. Now, the other big story that's been rumbling away all day in the cycling world is the possible, maybe even probable, return to racing of Lance Armstrong. Now, earlier on today I spoke by telephone to a source pretty well placed within the Armstrong camp, and he said that this is a story which has almost been waiting to break, and that the supposition is that Lance definitely will make an attempt to return to racing. He's been training apparently 5 hours every day and fully intends to get back on board, if not with Astana, who are at the moment denying his future participation, then with another team. So that'll be one to watch. What do you think about that, Paul? Can you see him in Burnham-on-Sea?
I don't know about Burnham-on-Sea, but I'd love to see him racing around Birmingham. That'd be a great day out, I'm sure.
I put the question of Lance Armstrong's future participation in cycling to David Miller, and this is what he had to say.
First impression is it's a bit wacky, really. I thought he had his life pretty dialed post-cycling, and he kind of put it behind him. But I don't know. I think he can make something very positive of it if he chooses to. It can either be for his own personal joyride, or he can make this into something that's really positive for cycling and really benefits all of us.
David Miller there with his thoughts about Lance Armstrong. Will he, won't he, possibly, maybe, who knows? Well, cycling never stays still, and nor do we, Paul. See you tomorrow in Stoke.